source, they pay a royalty.
But that's not the argument he's making here. He's saying that the tariffs will generate so much revenue that people in a certain income level will not have to pay taxes. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the tariffs would have to be 4 times what they are now to actually make up for that. I think some people look at that and say the math does not add up.
Well, I think when you're taking a look at the opportunity that we have to balance trade and companies that have had free access to our market, even at the 10% level, this is producing billions of dollars a day for America if those stay in place. If they don't stay in place, because we end up with free and fair trade, we know that America can compete with anyone. And if we start building and manufacturing products here, as opposed to outsourcing that to around the world, that's going to strengthen every community, create more high-paying jobs. And with the advent of AI coming, that's another thing where we've got to have the energy to be able to produce the electricity to win the AI arms race. President Trump very focused on that.
You're not.
Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and really everyone in MAGA walks around with this air to them, like they are so confident in their ideas that they couldn't be more correct. And it makes you wonder, why do these people then hate the press? Why do they hate going before Congress? Why would Elon Musk and all of his time in Doge never go under oath? Well, it's because they know they're lying to us. And they know how easy it is for Democrats in Congress to poke holes in their very bad arguments, which is exactly what we saw today from one of Donald Trump's stooges who melted under the pressure of cross-examination from Congressman Joe Nagis, who ripped him to shreds, and just such a perfect takedown. I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, and it goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me now. Without further ado, let's check out Jonah Goose.
But I'll digress. It sounds like one of the other reasons that you oppose the Biden-era rule, or why you support this CRA, is cost, right? Is prices. I heard an exchange previously with one of my friends on the other side of the aisle.
The financial impact
on consumers,
on my constituents and constituents across the United States.
And this is around car prices, right?
Specifically surrounding the EVs, the electric vehicles that consumers cannot afford and the consumers do not want.
And I assume you would agree with me. We don't want car prices going up, right? I mean, the last thing my constituents in Colorado want is the prices of their vehicles going up. And I assume the same is true of your constituents. Or is that not true?
My consumers, my constituents, and those across the United States want to pay for the vehicle that they want to choose, not the vehicle that the government mandates.
Sure. I didn't think this would be a point of disagreement. You're saying your constituents don't agree with my constituents that they don't want car prices to go up?
I think if a constituent wants to buy a more expensive vehicle, that is their choice. The whole discussion here,
I hear you about that.
I don't want the federal mandate for that.
Okay. Now Mendes got you here. Mr. Tonko, how about I ask you this question? Do the people of your district want prices of cars, generally, used cars, new cars, to go up?
No, of course
no.
not. You know,
okay. Sounds like that's not a controversial position. I think most Americans don't want the prices of their vehicles to go up. Is that right, Mr. Joyce? Or is that I can't get you to agree on that?
I think that they want to pay for the vehicle that they want to choose.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I think I understand why you don't want to answer that question directly. And it's because you know that car prices are going up, right? That just 2 days ago, for the first time in 3 years, used car prices went up year to year, increase. You're aware of that, right? There's an article I can read to you. I don't want to go through the whole. There's an article from a Pennsylvania newspaper that I could quote to you that I can represent to you, attests that car prices are going up.
You bring an interesting point into the conversation, and that is my concern. As we decrease the number of internal combustion engines, which Americans want to buy, as we decrease those, we will see an increase in those costs if we force individuals into electric vehicles that they cannot afford.
So you don't think that the car prices going up, unlike every economist in our country has concluded, have nothing to do with the tariffs? That you think that is that's not a factor?
We saw used cars increase during COVID. We saw that increase in used vehicles.
Correct. 4 years ago during COVID. I don't really understand that. I'm not asking you about car prices during the COVID pandemic. What I'm asking you is
the market drives what those costs are. And what my
And why do you
concern
think
is-
the market is
and
changing right now?
why the CRA is in place is that we are concerned that that is going to drive additional costs that America cannot
I see,
afford.
but you're not concerned at all about the tariffs.
I think that the tariffs are short-term pain for long-term gain.
Short-term pain. Let me just tell you, I don't want to impugn your motives here. I can just tell you that my constituents in Colorado didn't sign up for the short-term pain that you're apparently comfortable with. They don't want car prices to go up. And the fact that you can't bring yourself to just even agree with me on that premise, the notion that generally speaking, we should try to keep costs low, to me speaks volumes. No one here is prepared to defend President Trump's reckless tariff policies and yet simultaneously refuse to concede to the reality that these policies are wreaking economic havoc in communities in Colorado and in your communities, sir. And I understand that we have a policy disagreement about this CRA, but what I am telling you is that for the first time in 3 years, used car prices on average went up 2 days ago. And there's a reason for it. So the reason is Mr. Trump's policies, not a CRA that just went into effect. So with that, Madam Chair, again, I appreciate your indulgence and giving me the opportunity to say a few words here. And I thank both gentlemen for testifying, and I yield back.
From the beginning of the tariffs, and I don't mean the campaign when we pointed out again and again and again how stupid they were and how much it was clear that they would cause a recession if ever implemented in Donald Trump's administration. I'm talking about. I was always so surprised that they just couldn't get a clear message on this. MAGA loves to lie. They're usually good at staying on one line. Now, that doesn't mean that that lie is good. Lie is certainly not true. It's a lie. But at least it is the same message that has not been something MAGA has been able to do with this terrorist, with these trade wars. It's the stupidest trade war in history. So much so that not even the worst liars in politics can come up with one single line to deliver. They are not on message, because what could the message be? Markets are tanking. Trade deals aren't coming. Donald Trump is flailing. It is all bad. This is the most incompetent administration, and if you want to open up the hood a little bit more, you can see in some bits and pieces they're also the most corrupt. That's really what tariffs have been good for, is little carve-outs for Donald Trump's CEO buddies. You know, some market manipulation for him and Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is what it's all about, the corruption, which Joe continued to call out as we see in this clip right here.
What works in the holiday in Hollywood doesn't work in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
I hear and I see you're reading from there. I get it. These aren't gotcha questions. So I think you answered it. I think your point, what you're saying is that you don't believe that the Biden administration, the EPA under the Biden administration, had the authority to grant the waivers that it did to these states.
I do not.
Okay. Do you believe that the Trump administration has the authority to grant waivers to polluters?
I do not believe that the Trump administration is granting waivers to
You don't?
polluters. I do not.
Are you familiar with this new announcement? I'll read you this article. This is just from 2 weeks ago. EPA offers industrial polluters a way to avoid rules on mercury, arsenic, and other toxic chemicals. Are you aware of that?
I believe that we're discussing the California.
No, I hear you. You just answered. You said that, I think your testimony a minute ago was that you're not aware that the administration is pursuing any potential waivers for polluters or for states for that matter to avoid compliance with the Clean Air Act, right? Clearly that's not, I guess you're not aware, but you're aware now, right? I've made you aware of that. Let me read you just a paragraph from this article. The EPA has set up an electronic mailbox to allow regulated companies to request a presidential exemption under the Clean Air Act to a host of Biden-era rules. Companies were asked to send an email by Monday seeking permission from President Donald Trump to bypass the new restrictions. This is a part of, a push to roll back dozens of environmental regulations. The Trump administration is offering coal-fired power plants and other industrial polluters a chance for exemptions for requirements to reduce emissions of toxic chemicals, such as mercury, arsenic, and benzene. You're familiar with this now?
With your reading, I think it is important that we return the discussion to what this CRA
I hear you,
achieves.
Mr. Joyce. I get it. You've testified at great length about this particular. I get why you're supporting the CRA. I understand that. Seems like you don't want to talk about this, what they're calling the polluters portal. And I think you could understand why I would be frustrated and the people that I represent in Colorado would be frustrated. Because on the one hand, it sounds like you're taking the position that the EPA, under a Democratic administration, has no authority to grant a state an exemption to be able to impose standards that are a bit higher to protect clean air and clean water. But under the Trump administration, it seems like, unless you want to disabuse me of this, you're completely fine with the Trump administration granting exemptions to polluters to avoid the requirements of the Clean Air Act with respect to these chemicals that are regulated. Do you understand why that would strike people as a bit confounding?
The only confounding part that I recognize is how the Biden administration turns away from the free market and wants to allow a Biden-era EPA to enforce a rule onto my constituents that doesn't allow them to
I hear you.
choose
You
and
said that a
buy
few
vehicle
times.
that they can afford.
I hear
to
you.
choose and buy a vehicle that can drive them to and from work.
I get it. I get why you oppose this rule. I understand why you.
You would think that it wouldn't be too controversial for us to want clean air, clean water, that with all the gifts I was about to say, with all the gifts Donald Trump has given corporations, I know he's going to write him a big tax cut, but he has kind of destroyed the economy for everyone with his trade war, which actually we're going to get into another clip in just a second. But well, with all of this in mind, you think it wouldn't be too much to ask, but again, the inconsistencies of the MAGA mindset very easily come apart when you just apply a little bit of pressure on them. Just dive a little bit deeper into what they're saying. And I told you that we were going to be talking a little bit more about a clip about Donald Trump's trade deals. And yeah, let's take a look at Doug Burgum right here.
I mean, he's arguing that he's made 200 trade deals so far.
Well, there is all kinds of countries, that are showing up at the doorstep because they understand America is serious about leveling the trade issues right now.
Can I ask?
He's not making any sense. Donald Trump has already made 200 trade deals with which countries? Do they go to a different school? Do they live in Canada? And what's been so especially bad about Donald Trump's approach to the tariffs, man? I could really go anywhere when I say that, couldn't I? But it's specifically with China is Donald Trump is in the many different ways. He's tried to frame this plan as we're going after China. We're being tough on China. Even though Donald Trump is a scave to China, several different instances during this trade war, but if that was the actual approach, you would want a stronger trading relationship with Vietnam, South Korea than Japan. That's not the case. Donald Trump has levied huge tariffs against those countries, started trade wars there, and now that they've turned to China to be their more reliable trading partner, because no one can trust the United States. We can't get a deal done with other countries like those until we get one done with China. And what does that give China leverage? And what is that? That's the art of the deal. Find a way to give your opponent in the most convoluted way possible a bunch of leverage over. Do we not just have the stupidest president in history? Our stupidest person is running our country, and I hate it every day. But we got to call it out. We're certainly doing so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.